Not everyone hits their stride in their 20s. Some people bloom later, not because they were lazy or lost, but because life had other plans. You may know someone like that. They lived quietly, worked hard, never asked for much. In their youth, they didn't stand out, but somehow in their 60s or 70s, everything changed. Opportunities appeared, money started to flow, respect followed, and people around them began to say, "I never saw it coming, but now I see who they've always been." This video is about those people, and more specifically about the 4 Chinese zodiac signs most likely to experience that kind of transformation. Those who were overlooked when young but grow into quiet power and unexpected prosperity as they age. We're not talking about winning the lottery or chasing trends. We're talking about a kind of wealth that's built slowly, through patience, discipline, and character. A kind of wealth that doesn't scream, it whispers. It gathers behind the scenes until one day it quietly lifts a life into comfort, influence, and ease. You might be one of those signs, or maybe someone you love is. And even if you're not, you might see pieces of yourself in their story. The slow starts, the sacrifices, the inner knowing that your time is coming, even if no one else sees it yet. Today, we'll explore who these 4 signs are, why their path to abundance takes time, and what makes their later years the most prosperous of all. But more than just a list, this is a deeper look at what it means to live in alignment with your nature, and how sometimes the most powerful kind of success is the one that waits until the world is finally quiet enough to notice. Part 1. Not all wealth arrives when you're young. Not all wealth shows up when we expect it. Some people are born into privilege, some stumble into it young. And then there are those who spend half their lives wondering if they missed the boat. They work hard, do the right thing, stay humble, and still nothing glitters. They're not flashy. They're not loud. They're just steady, but somehow they go unnoticed. Years pass, others move ahead, and in the quiet corners of their minds, a question forms: is it too late for me? If that thought has ever touched you, even briefly, this part is for you. Because what the world often forgets is that wealth, real wealth, doesn't always bloom in spring. Sometimes it waits for fall. Sometimes the richest fruit grows slow. And some of the strongest, wisest, and most quietly prosperous people don't peak in their 30s or 40. They rise in their 60s, their 70s, or later. Not because they finally got lucky, but because they were always growing, just out of sight. We live in a culture that celebrates speed. Promotions by 30, retirement by 50, status, followers, assets, all fast, all loud. But nature doesn't work that way. A redwood tree can grow underground for 2 years before it breaks the surface. A pearl forms under pressure, slowly, layer by layer. And people who carry deep reservoirs of patience, discipline, and character often don't look like much in their early years, but give them time. Watch what happens. There are people who go unnoticed for decades. They raise families, they take care of others, they keep things running quietly in the background. They don't ask for applause, they just show up. Again and again. And while the world is busy chasing the next big thing, they're planting something steadier, something the world won't notice until it starts to bloom. And when it does, everything changes. They don't rise with a bang, there's no parade, no announcement. But suddenly they're the ones people go to for advice. They're the ones who have options, savings, real estate, passive income, peace. Not just financial wealth, but emotional clarity. Not just assets, but influence, the kind that's earned, not bought. This kind of late blooming wealth isn't random. It's built, slowly, silently. It grows in people who have learned to wait, to observe, to act with intention, not impulse. And when the time comes, they don't just survive their later years, they thrive in them. The signs of this wealth aren't always obvious. It's not a fancy car or designer shoes. It's the ability to pay off someone's medical bills quietly. To say no without fear. To wake up in a home that's fully yours. It's dignity. It's knowing who you are without needing anyone else to validate it. It's freedom, not to escape life, but to live it on your terms. And here's the part most people miss. Wealth that arrives late often stays longer. It's more stable, more grounded, because it wasn't rushed or borrowed or built on trends. It came from years of choices, most of them small, most of them unglamorous, but each one mattered. Each one built something invisible until one day that invisible structure became unshakable. If you've ever felt like life passed you by, if you've watched others get rewarded while you stayed behind the scenes, this isn't the end of your story. It might just be the turning point, because wealth isn't only for the loud, and success doesn't only belong to the young. Sometimes the richest lives are lived in quiet rhythm, built one good decision at a time. No spotlight, no shortcuts, just depth, consistency, and faith that your season will come. And when it does, it won't be small, because what's been growing beneath the surface all these years isn't just money. It's wisdom, perspective, power, the kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. So if your life has been slow, if your wins have been delayed, don't give up on your timing. Don't compare your path to anyone else's. Some stories don't start big, but they end deep, strong, unforgettable. Not all wealth arrives when you're young. But that doesn't mean it's not coming, it just means it's coming when you're most ready to hold it. Part 2: The 4 Zodiac signs that rise silently and prosper in old age. 1. The goat, the quiet builder of trust. Some people walk into a room and immediately command attention. Others, like those born in the year of the goat, don't. They don't raise their voices, they don't push their opinions, they don't need to be seen. But years later, when people look back, they realize the goat was the one holding everything together, quietly, constantly, and with more strength than anyone ever gave them credit for. The goat isn't flashy. They don't chase trends or flaunt status, but they build something more powerful than popularity. They build trust. And trust, though slow to grow, becomes the foundation for the kind of wealth that doesn't just arrive, but stays. Goats often go unnoticed in their youth. They're the ones who say yes more than they say no. The ones who help behind the scenes. They carry the emotional weight of a family, a team, a community, and rarely ask for anything in return. People rely on them but rarely pause to ask how they are doing. And the goat rarely says. They keep moving forward, quietly, gently, constantly watching, supporting, and anchoring. But what others don't see, what even the goat sometimes forgets, is that this quiet strength is a kind of investment. Every act of kindness, every promise kept, every moment of patience, it all adds up. Not in applause, not in attention, but in credibility, in relationships, in silent, unseen doors that begin to open later in life. By the time the goat reaches midlife, something begins to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually opportunities start to find them. Someone remembers a favor from years ago and returns with an offer. A friend introduces them to a business partner. A neighbor recommends them for a role. Suddenly, the goat, who never sought the spotlight, becomes the center of a quiet kind of momentum. What's unique about this wealth is that it's not luck. It's not accidental. It's earned layer by layer over years of showing up with integrity. And because it's built on real human connection, it's stable. Goats don't get rich quick. But when they do grow their wealth, it's rooted, it's resilient, it lasts. You won't find the goat making impulsive decisions. They think carefully, feel deeply, and wait patiently, sometimes too patiently. They may doubt themselves, they may hesitate, they may even give others the credit they deserve. But what sets them apart is that when their moment comes, they are ready. They've spent decades learning, growing, refining, and when the right opportunity appears, they don't chase it, they align with it. There's a quiet moment in many goat lives, usually in their 50s or 60s, when everything begins to click. Their values finally meet their opportunities. The world catches up to their way of doing things, and suddenly all that consistency, all that depth, all that trust becomes their greatest currency. And here's where the real emotional truth lands. Goats often don't know they are the glue. They're so used to giving they don't always realize how much they've held together. But life has a way of circling back, of remembering those who built quietly, who gave without asking, who stayed steady when others drifted. In their later years, goats are often gifted with something rare, genuine support. Friends come through, mentors reappear, children rise up, communities honor them. They may not have chased wealth, but wealth begins to chase them. Not just money, but peace, options, security. A legacy they didn't plan to leave, but now can't help but offer. Financially, goats thrive in areas that require emotional intelligence, real estate, education, counseling, healing arts, community leadership. Their ability to listen, to read between the lines, to gently guide, these are traits the world grows to value more and more. And because goats aren't driven by ego, they don't burn bridges, they build them, brick by brick. Energetically, their power grows stronger when they surround themselves with balance. A home filled with warm tones, fresh flowers, soft light, and symbols of trust, like a painting of a crane couple or a bowl of smooth stones, can help anchor their energy. Small acts of harmony open bigger doors, and simple daily rituals, lighting a candle in the morning, tending to a peaceful corner, writing down one thing they're grateful for, help goats connect with their own quiet source of abundance. If you are a goat, or you recognize a goat in your life, know this: just because someone hasn't made it by 30 doesn't mean they won't. Some people are born to shine early. Others are built to rise late and last long. Goats don't fade, they ripen. And when their time comes, they carry not just wealth but wisdom, not just assets but soul. And perhaps the most beautiful part, they don't need to prove it. Their lives speak for themselves, in the way people show up for them, in the peace they carry, in the quiet stability they offer without even trying. So if you've ever felt like your story was slow to unfold, if you've spent years giving more than you've received, if you've built trust but haven't seen it return yet, hold on. You may be living the quiet path of the goat, and if so, your season isn't just coming, it's already begun. 2. The pig, the guardian of peace and savings. Some people chase wealth, others protect it. And then there are those rare few who quietly attract it without even trying. People born in the year of the pig often belong to that third group. They don't live loudly, they don't need to be first, but they carry something most others spend a lifetime chasing: peace. And from that peace, something powerful grows: stability, savings, and eventually abundance. If you've ever watched someone who doesn't seem to do anything extraordinary, but somehow always seems to be okay, never in debt, never in panic, never scrambling to catch up, they might just be a pig. Their power is subtle, their mindset is steady, and their financial life, while never showy, is often quietly thriving beneath the surface. Pigs aren't driven by status. They're not the ones chasing the next best thing. Instead, they focus on living well, not extravagantly, just well. A calm home, meals made with care, bills paid on time, clothes that last, decisions that don't require second guessing. And slowly, that way of living builds something far more valuable than luxury. It builds peace of mind. What makes the pig unique is that they rarely act out of impulse. They think before they spend. They avoid unnecessary drama. They save not because they are afraid, but because they are wise. They understand the difference between wanting something and needing it. And while others may spend money to feel better, pigs spend carefully to stay better. This doesn't mean they are cold or frugal, quite the opposite. Pigs are generous, but in a way that's intentional. They'll help a neighbor quietly, lend money to a friend without broadcasting it, donate without asking for thanks. Their kindness is never performative, it's grounded in their values. And over time, those values become the compass that leads them to wealth, not fast wealth, but sustainable, reliable wealth. Many pigs live below their means, but above their stress. They may not look like they have a lot, but they're rarely caught off guard. They keep a reserve, a buffer, a quiet little space between them and the chaos of the world. And in that space, they breathe. They make decisions from clarity, not fear. They say no without guilt. And when a storm comes, financial, emotional, or otherwise, they have shelter, not just in their bank account, but in their mind. As they age, something beautiful happens. The pig's lifelong discipline begins to bear fruit, while others scramble to recover from financial mistakes made in their 30s or 40. The pig simply continues forward. Maybe they aren't flashy, but they are free. They can support their children, pay off their home, take a trip without worry, or simply enjoy their days without the pressure that weighs so many others down. And that freedom, that quiet, simple freedom, is wealth in its truest form. Pigs aren't risk takers, but they're not afraid of growth either. They are strategic, patient, willing to take calculated steps toward their goals, but only when it feels aligned. You won't see them gamble or jump into trends, but you will see them invest in things that last: education, home improvements, quality relationships, and their health. Because for the pig, wealth is never just about money. It's about life feeling full, steady, and meaningful. What's truly remarkable about pigs is that their wealth rarely looks like wealth. You won't always see it, but you'll feel it in their confidence, in the way they sleep at night, in the absence of urgency in their voice. That calm, that's what long-term wisdom looks like. If you are a pig or know someone who is, you may already recognize these traits. And if you've ever wondered why your life path feels slow but solid, why you've never been drawn to extremes or excess, it's because your nature is built for something different. You were never meant to chase. You were meant to build quietly. And now, later in life, you might start noticing how that quiet has become your superpower. This doesn't mean life has been perfect. Pigs have known hardship. They've experienced loss, but even in those seasons, they rarely fall apart. Because they've never placed their identity in things they couldn't control. They know how to return to center, how to rebuild without bitterness, how to grieve without losing their gentleness. In relationships, pigs are the emotional anchors. They forgive more easily than most. They avoid drama. They're rarely the loudest voice, but often the most respected. And in the long run, that emotional steadiness translates into a kind of social wealth, networks of trust, partnerships built on mutual respect, and communities that look to them for guidance. In terms of practical tips, pigs benefit from living spaces that reflect their inner calm. A well-organized home, natural light, simple, functional design, a dedicated space for reflection or journaling. In the southeast corner of the home, traditionally associated with wealth energy, placing a money frog or a small sailing ship can help anchor their intentions. These aren't magic charms, they are reminders of who they are and what they've built. Because here's the truth, a pig doesn't need a windfall to feel rich. They just need alignment. When their external life matches their internal values, they thrive. And the older they get, the more obvious that becomes. While others race, they walk. And somehow they still arrive, calm, steady, and whole. So if you're watching this and you've ever wondered why you've been cautious, why you've lived simply, why you've never needed to prove anything, know that those choices weren't small. They were strategic, and now they're beginning to pay off, quietly, powerfully, and just in time, because not all fortunes make headlines. Some just make life easier, safer, kinder. And if that's what you've built, you haven't missed anything. You've mastered what most people never will. 3. The horse, the wild learner who comes home to prosperity. Some people learn by sitting still. Others have to run to understand. People born in the year of the horse are like that. They are not wired for small lives. They are not designed to stay in one place. From an early age, there's a fire inside them, a hunger to explore, to try, to feel, to leap. And yes, sometimes to fall. But the horse does not fear falling, because every failure becomes a foothold. Every scar becomes a story. And eventually, all those stories add up to something no one can take away: wisdom and wealth. If the goat builds slow and the pig builds safe, the horse builds bold. They make decisions others wouldn't dare to make. They walk away from jobs that look good on paper. They move to new cities on a gut feeling. They start businesses when everyone else tells them to play it safe. And while they may not always win in the short term, over time, the horse learns something most people never do: how to live in alignment with who they truly are. Horses live with intensity. That's both their challenge and their gift. They feel everything deeply. And because of that, they learn quickly. One bad investment teaches them 10 times more than a safe win. One heartbreak becomes a masterclass in self-worth. They move fast, but over time, they learn to move wisely. In their younger years, this can look chaotic. Their bank accounts may fluctuate. Their resume may look like a patchwork. Their relationships may burn bright and end suddenly. But underneath it all, the horse is absorbing, learning, adjusting, and slowly something changes. They start making fewer mistakes. They stop proving and start choosing. They begin to understand that freedom isn't about running from everything. It's about building something worth staying for. And that's where the wealth begins. The horse rarely gets rich young. Their fire burns too hot, too fast in the early years, but as they age, something beautiful happens. Their restlessness becomes direction, their passion becomes purpose. They've tried enough, failed enough, tasted enough to know what works and, more importantly, what doesn't. And when they find the right lane, they gallop. This kind of prosperity isn't loud. It doesn't come from chasing every opportunity. It comes from choosing the right ones, from focusing their energy, from using their natural magnetism not to impress, but to inspire. And because horses are usually well-liked, well-connected, and naturally persuasive, once they've matured into stability, doors open easily. Horses often thrive in entrepreneurial roles, creative industries, leadership, real estate, and anything that allows for growth, movement, or challenge. They cannot be boxed in, but give them space and trust, and they'll turn ideas into income, motion into momentum. What's striking about the horse's path is that wealth often shows up when they least expect it. A former client calls with an offer. A side project suddenly becomes a business. A hobby turns into passive income. Because they've said yes to so many things in life, they have a vast web of relationships, skills, and ideas to draw from. And when that network finally converges, it brings opportunity on every level. Emotionally, the horse has to learn restraint, not in passion, but in pressure. They are easily excited, easily inspired, but also easily scattered. Their work in later years is to simplify, to focus, to conserve their energy for what truly matters. When they do, they not only become successful, they become magnetic. People want to follow them, learn from them, partner with them. At home, horses thrive in spaces that reflect light and movement. Natural sunlight, flowing curtains, airy rooms, colors that inspire, deep red, warm orange, earthy green. Wind chimes or small water features help bring their environment into balance. In the south sector of the home, placing amethyst or a wealth tower can help calm the mind and encourage clarity in financial decisions. But more than any object, it's the horse's own rhythm that determines their success. When they find the balance between speed and stillness, when they stop running away and start running toward, they unlock a level of growth few ever experience. If you are a horse and your life has felt like a whirlwind, don't mistake that for failure. You were never meant to walk a straight path. You were meant to zigzag, to test boundaries, to get lost and then come home with everything you learned. The reason your wealth comes later is because your early life wasn't about building, it was about becoming. And now, as your mind clears and your heart settles, you're finally ready to build something lasting. And if you love someone who's a horse, understand this: they're not inconsistent. They are evolving. And when they arrive fully into themselves, they don't just thrive, they lead with heart, with experience, with an authenticity that can't be faked. Because that's the core of the horse's journey: to live fully, to learn through living, and eventually to gather all of that into a life that's not only rich, but meaningful. In the end, the horse doesn't just come home to prosperity. They create it by returning to themselves. 4. The snake, the silent strategist. Some people talk about their dreams before they've even begun. Others move in silence, planning, preparing, building something the world won't see until it's too solid to ignore. People born in the year of the snake belong to that second group. You won't hear them boast. You won't see them rush. But beneath that quiet surface lies one of the sharpest minds in the Zodiac, and a gift for wealth that doesn't burn bright early, but smolders steadily until it bursts into something lasting. The snake is not interested in noise. They are not drawn to applause. They prefer precision over praise. And while the world races ahead, snakes take their time, watching, studying, learning from every mistake around them. They rarely make the same error twice. Because to the snake, life is not a sprint, it's a sequence, and every step is calculated. That's what makes their financial path so unique. It doesn't begin with flash, it begins with clarity. Most snakes don't hit their stride until later in life, not because they are slow, but because they are strategic. They don't move until the moment is right, but when it is, they move with absolute confidence, no hesitation, no wasted effort, just direct, purposeful action. In their early years, snakes often feel out of sync. While others jump from one thing to the next, the snake is already thinking 5 moves ahead. But because they don't show their process, they are often misunderstood, labeled too quiet, too cautious. But what looks like passivity is actually preparation. What seems like waiting is alignment. And so they wait, not with frustration, but with focus. They gather skills, build emotional intelligence, learn from others' failures. And when the opportunity finally presents itself, when the market shifts or the partnership appears or the timing aligns, they don't just act. They capitalize, not recklessly, not impulsively, but with sharp timing and deep understanding. Snakes build wealth like architects build homes, foundation first. They start small, they repeat what works, they adapt, and they often do it all while flying under the radar. Friends and family might not realize how much they've built until one day the snake has a second property, a fully funded retirement, a portfolio they never mentioned but always planned for. Emotionally, snakes are private. They don't overshare, they don't react. Instead, they reflect. Their inner world is rich, complex, and often more alive than their outer one. That gives them an advantage because their decisions are not swayed by trends or pressure. They spend time alone not to escape, but to refine. They don't fear solitude, they use it. And when it comes to money, that solitude becomes their power. Snakes track their spending, study investments, question contracts. They don't buy just to buy. They buy because something adds value, because it serves a long-term vision, because it fits into a larger map that only they can see clearly. That map over time turns into financial freedom, and it's not dramatic. There's no sudden jackpot moment, no big lottery win, just consistent, intelligent choices that compound over decades. And then seemingly out of nowhere, the snake is free, free from debt, free from chaos, free from depending on anyone else. They often thrive in careers that reward discretion, focus, and deep thinking, finance, strategy, psychology, technology, research. They're not afraid of complexity. In fact, they find comfort in it, because they understand that the more thoughtful the approach, the more lasting the result. At home, snakes do best in environments that reflect clarity and focus. Clean lines, organized drawers, a dedicated space for thinking, maybe a small desk with natural light. In their living space, adding tiger's eye crystal or a small object that symbolizes decisiveness, like a brass compass or a sleek black stone in the northwest or southeast, can subtly strengthen their confidence and financial intuition. But the most important element is not the decor. It's discipline. The snake's life turns when they fully trust their own inner compass, not when they start moving faster, but when they start believing in their pace. Because that's where the snake often struggles, not with intelligence, but with doubt. They question themselves. They wait too long, or they let one missed chance convince them they've failed. But in truth, their moment is not behind them. It's still forming, quietly, deliberately, and it's coming. If you are a snake and you've spent years watching others move ahead while you held back, this is your reminder you weren't frozen, you were calculating. And now, you are closer than ever to your breakthrough. Not a loud one, but a solid one. The kind that stays. And if you love someone who's a snake, give them space to think. Don't rush them, don't pressure them to be more visible. The snake may be the last to speak, but when they do, it's usually the most important voice in the room. Because in the end, snakes rise not by chasing, but by mastering. They don't need to be fast, they need to be right. And when they are, no one can stop them. Part 3, not one of the 4. You still have a path. Maybe you listened closely and didn't hear your sign. You weren't born in the year of the goat, the pig, the horse, or the snake. And now a quiet thought might be forming in the back of your mind. So what about me? Let's answer that gently but clearly. Just because you're not on a list doesn't mean you don't belong to the story. Because wealth, real wealth, isn't handed out only by Zodiac charts or birth years. It's built, grown, earned, and the most powerful kind of abundance has less to do with when you were born and more to do with how you live now. There are people who weren't supposed to succeed. According to statistics, their path should have been harder. According to personality types, they weren't wired for discipline. But here they are, at peace, stable, fulfilled. Why? Because at some point they stopped waiting for permission and started planting their own seeds. Wealth isn't fate, it's repetition. It's what you choose to do when no one's watching. Every time you say no to a distraction, every time you save when you could spend, every time you choose to learn instead of escape, you're not just doing the right thing. You're changing your story, quietly, powerfully, irreversibly. So maybe you weren't born with a lucky sign, but maybe that's exactly what gives you the power to prove the charts wrong. Because the person who builds their blessings slowly often holds onto them longer, because they were never handed, they were chosen. And that choice, it still exists today, in this moment, in your next small step. Maybe your past was unstable. Maybe your younger years were filled with detours and doubt. But none of that disqualifies you, because every good habit you begin now, every quiet change you make is a seed. You may not see it bloom tomorrow or next month, but a year from now, 5 years, 10, it will come, and it will come stronger because you stayed. So if you weren't named in this video, that's okay. It just means your rise won't be predicted, it will be earned. Quietly, consistently, on your own terms, and often that's the kind that lasts the longest. Fannel, we've talked about 4 zodiac signs who rise slowly, but rise deeply. We've seen how the goat builds trust until it turns into legacy, how the pig saves not just money but peace, how the horse learns through fire and returns home with wisdom, and how the snake waits in silence only to strike when the moment is right. But what ties them all together isn't luck. It's not birth charts or cosmic timing. It's the quiet power of patience, of alignment, of living in rhythm with who you are without needing to rush or compare or explain. Wealth isn't always fast, success isn't always loud, and meaning is never given, it's made through steady habits, clear intentions, gentle choices, over and over again. If you saw yourself in one of these signs, I hope it reminded you of your quiet strength. If you didn't, I hope it reminded you that your path is still yours to write. Because timing is not a punishment, it's a design. And some of the most beautiful lives unfold slowly. So thank you for staying through this journey, for giving yourself space to reflect, for honoring your own pace. Wherever you are in life right now, whether you're still planting, still waiting, or just beginning to bloom, I hope you know this: your time is not behind you, it's forming, silently, powerfully, just beneath the surface. And when it arrives, it won't need to prove anything. It will simply feel right. Wishing you peace, a prosperity, and a life that ripens beautifully in exactly your season.